Welcome to the shop. Today, the 1x30 belt grinder. Get a lot of questions on mine, what I've done to it, and how I make it more efficient. This is a very affordable unit that can produce really good quality knives if you know how to use it. The pros of it, it's cheap. Belts are cheap. The downside of it is it's cheap. The motor runs too fast, so it's easy to mess up and it's hard to recover from a mess up. As you can see from this knife here, the belt dug in too far and ruined the ricasso, but you can get really nice lines with this grinder. So before, what I was doing with my grinder is I'd have the plate that came standard with the unit, and I'd use a piece of wood as a jig. So I've since gotten rid of it because it was awful. But what I did is I'd take the piece of wood and I'd cut it at an angle. This is the piece that I used. A piece that came off of the grinder. I cut it at a 10-degree angle, and then I'd adjust the plate to compensate to get the correct angle, because the plate can't bend this way, it only bends down. So I used that, and I'd literally just clamp the knife on and run it. Issues with that is that the piece of wood was inconsistent. It didn't hold the knife just right. So I had to make modifications to the grinder. But my first problem was I didn't have a good jig. So the first thing I did was I built this jig. It's out of a 2x2 piece of aluminum angle. I drilled holes that are offset. Then I have 2 bolts that are a 1/4 inch with some washers to hold the knife in place. That way you can get a consistent angle. But the issue was it was at a 90-degree angle, and I couldn't tilt the plate back far enough to give me the angle I wanted. So what I did is that the plate, this tool rest wasn't big enough. But for the initial idea, I was like, okay, well, if I can get the plate to tilt back, then I would be fine. So what I did is I cut this little notch out right here, because if I tilted it back, it would come in contact with the motor. And then over here on the back side, let's see if we can get the angle on it. Right there. So I sanded this portion out right here. And then I put the plate on, the jig, I mean, and I'd use that. But the issue was that as I got to the end, it would tend to rock back like that. So what I did is I got a piece of scrap plate that I got from a welding shop. It's a little over 1/8 of an inch. I'd recommend something a little bit thicker than 1/8, but this holds up just fine, especially for how short it is. And then I took bolts, I drilled through the plate, and then I drilled a hole through the top here into the tool rest, bolted it down, and then I put another plate right here, another bolt right here to match up. From there, I was able to get this on so I can grind just fine. But the other problem that I was coming across was the platen wasn't tall enough. It cut off about right here with the new addition, and the knife stuck up just a little bit, so you're getting a slack belt right up here on the edge, and then the platen back here. So what you need to do is build yourself a new platen. So basically just get a piece of steel, grind it down to 1 inch, and then bend that 90. This is a little bit trickier than you think, because this has to be 90 degrees, and then it has to be tilted vertically 90 degrees. So you can still see I have a little bit of a hang off right here. The next portion that I did is these bolts. And that was another tricky bit. These bolts, you have to drill a hole, and then you have to essentially just file them out so that you can adjust this so it's flat against the belt. So what I had to do in this one, in this case, is I had to put a shim on there because it wasn't completely square to bring this side up a little bit more so it'd be flush against the belt. I still have just a little bit more work, but it does the job just fine at this point. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully you can get a grinder like this and start making some knives that are a little bit better. If you want any more videos of the work I do, I can post them. But thanks again for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.